So for the feminists that believe feminism means equality, I guess your movement didn't get the memo. Let's go through some of the goals leading feminists want, shall we? This is why everyone you talk to says actions speak louder than words. Your belief versus what the movement is doing just doesn't match up. But don't take my word for it. Here are the top things feminists want in 2015.
My hope is that feminist, racial justice, reproductive rights, and LGBT movements build a coalition that centers on the lives of women who lead intersectional lives and too often fall in between the cracks of these narrow mission statements.
Admirable goal. However, that's not equality, since you only care about what centers around women's lives. You really think gay men or intersectional men don't fall between the cracks? Someone needs to tweet Janet Mock and tell her she isn't a real feminist.
I'd love to see publications make a greater effort to include the voices of women, gender nonconforming people, and people of color, to put programs and policies in place that will help to level the playing field.
And I'd love to see publications put out content people want regardless of who the person is, whether it's a woman, gender nonconforming person, or a person of color. Instead of quotas, how about let these people work on merit just like everyone else?
I'd like to see less digital dualism, which perpetuates the fallacy that online harassment isn't real harassment, when in fact so many women writers face threats just for doing their job, writing on the internet.
Digital dualism? The belief that the on and offline are largely separate and distinct realities. Digital dualists view digital content as part of a virtual world separate from a real world found in physical space. You want less of that? Huh. Yeah, no, one is definitely the land of make-believe while the other is real life. It's interesting, though, that you want to focus on women since men are the majority victims of this real harassment.
For those of you who are unaware, swatting is when someone decides it'd be really funny to call in a fake threat, be it a hostage situation, a shooting, bomb, or otherwise, to send a highly armed and ready-to-go SWAT team to an unsuspecting victim's house. And here are some not-so-fun facts about swatting.
The FBI estimates that there are 400 swatting calls per year.
Each time a SWAT team is deployed, it can cost up to $10,000.
While in the gaming community, we're familiar with this prank to target opponents or streamers. Hollywood celebs have been targeted as well.
And you're complaining about gender-specific insults.
There's a name for you ladies, but it isn't used in high society, outside of a kennel.
This female focus on gender-neutral problems is why I'm not a feminist.
I would like to see the creation of 2 million new, living wage, $15 or more, caregiving jobs, and more affordable options for quality care for working families, particularly in light of the number of women in the workforce and the rapidly growing older population in America.
While this isn't gender-specific, I am against this living wage narrative. Instead of forcing companies to pay a wage where the position isn't worth a living wage, why not get a skill that is in demand and find a position that provides a living wage? But by all means, build a care center and pay whatever wage you wish as the owner.
We have an amazing opportunity with HeForShe for one half of humanity, men, to join in solidarity with the other half of humanity, women, in creating a shared vision of gender equality that benefits all of humanity.
By all of humanity, you mean women, right? Or how about we shove HeForShe where the sun don't shine and actually have a movement that works for gender equality for everyone and not just women?
I hope that 2015 brings a focus on turning the anger and frustration around the issues of police brutality and violence against black people in this country into concrete policy changes being led by the diversity of leaders I've seen and continue to see in the 2014 actions. We want to continue the table of change, not have a seat at it.
Oh, you mean the death by police numbers that affect white people more than black people. Ironically, more black people die from other black people. So having a diversity policy doesn't really do jack diddly to fix this issue, now does it?
I hope to see a continued resurgence of young black people owning their power to end police and domestic violence. 2015 will be a year of fresh ideas mixing with tried and true organizing tactics in the tradition of leaders like Ella Baker.
Oh, is that how you end police brutality and domestic violence, is to own power? Let's hear your ideas on maybe we can end all domestic and police violence and not just for blacks.
I want to see Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube set up coherent standards and effective block report tools to protect users from abuse and hate speech, particularly rape victims being harassed and doxxed for speaking out about their rapes.
1. Block and report tools are effective. 2. I'm pro-free speech and anti-speech police narrative. And 3. Please provide evidence that rape victims are being doxxed for speaking out about their rape experiences.
I want to see a mass realization that police brutality is a feminist issue and for mainstream feminist organizations to help change these policies.
This really has nothing to do with gender equality, but that all depends on how you look at police brutality. If you're going to look at it through the lens of race or gender, please keep it out of the hands of feminists. I would have to hear the policy suggestions first, though.
In 2015, I'd love to see more representation of women of color in socio-political actions, and I'm doing my part by organizing a Women's Freedom March centering on women of color and our stories.
I'm glad you're doing your part in being the change you want to see, but representation comes from policy, not skin color or gender.
I want to see queer and trans people of color with radical social and political analyses dominate independent media by creating and growing our own platforms, so we can centralize and control our own narratives.
I don't think you understand how representation works. 1. Nothing is stopping you from creating anything you want in the media. 2. Nothing is stopping you from growing and creating your own platform. Good luck. And 3. Just because I share the same sexual orientation, gender, and race as someone doesn't mean they represent me. Why queer and trans people think that it does is beyond me.
I hope we can channel the energy around campus gender-based violence towards creating more options outside the criminal justice system for all survivors, not only students.
Take out the term gender-based and I will agree with this. I do hope by saying this she is going to focus on how men are sorely underrepresented in this area and looking to recognize men as victims and women as perpetrators. I tweeted her to get a better clarification of what she meant by this. I won't hold my breath as I feel she is only saying all survivors when she really means victims of male violence. It's completely an assumption on my part, but it wouldn't be far off base of other feminist narratives. HeForShe!
In 2015, I hope for a movement that is fighting for all black lives and that allows for the stories of all black women to be in the forefront of our fight.
And I hope for a movement that is fighting for all lives regardless of race. As I pointed out, death by police affects whites more than it does blacks. But I'm not going to be focusing on all black lives because they are a minority. This is divisive.
My 2015 resolution is to make sure that black women, especially black queer and trans women, are playing a strong leadership role in the growing movement for black lives and black liberation. Because black women are the portals to the future, we can do a lot to shape a new economy and new democracy for all of us.
Black women are the portals to the future. Citation needed. This is just as divisive as the previous point. All lives matter, not just black lives. For a movement that says it's for men too, sure excludes men quite a lot.
In 2015, I want to see our communities continue to rise up to challenge the criminalization of all people. At the national and local level, my organization, BADGI, and the national network we coordinate, the Black Immigration Network, will be campaigning to end mass incarceration, detention, and deportation.
All of those organizations are meant to represent the black community, not everyone, as per feminism claims. This technically doesn't have to do with equality, as it affects white men more than it does black women, and all those organizations are race-specific.
In 2015, I want fewer speeches about supporting women in games and more concrete action. It's time to open up game developing to the rest of us.
Coming from Brianna Wu, this is pretty fantastic. There are plenty of women that are supported in video game developing. It's been open to you for quite a while now. They just don't support you in video games.